It is Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Sunday, June 17th, 2018, the 4th of Tammuz, 5778. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. Get in touch with me during the week. Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter at Josh Hasten. Last week on the program, we dedicated a lot of the show to talking about the neighborhood of Netiv Ha'avot, here where I live in Elazar, Gush Etzion. And it was a day or two, it was a day before when you heard the broadcast, the destruction of 15 homes, the eviction of 15 families and the destruction of their homes. So it's been a traumatic week. That decree came to pass. There was no miracle in the last minute. That didn't happen. So on Tuesday, you had hundreds of Israeli security forces, including the police and the border police, with IDF soldiers making a ring around the community itself, and then actually it was the border police and the police tasked with throwing 15 Zionist, tax-paying, reserve army duty serving families out of their homes here. So one of those who was thrown out of his house along with his family, his wife and his children, he's been on the show before, is Rabbi Natan Alexander, and he's here with me now. We're here in Elazar. And Rabbi Natan is exhausted, justifiably so. I mean, everyone in Israel is tired on Sunday. That's the way it is. We don't have Sundays off. People go back to work here on Sundays. But not only is it Sunday for him, but it's the first Sunday after he was forcibly removed. And I said it before, and I've said it for months now, unnecessarily out of his home, whereas the government could have found a creative, simple solution so that this High Court of Justice ruling would not come into effect in order to save 15 homes and not displace 35% of a neighborhood, 17 out of 42 houses. So Rabbi Natan is now living in a makeshift neighborhood temporarily, with the hope, please God, that in a few years he, along with his 14 other neighbors, will move back to Netiv Ha'avot with homes just a few meters off from where they were standing before, and then eventually the plan is for 350 more units. That being said, and I've said it before here on the show, for those who are thrown out of their homes, is it a consolation? Is it not a consolation? I don't think that this week for them, and I'll let Rav Natan speak for himself, I don't think that this week, having to go through this trauma, it is a consolation. Maybe he's so optimistic that he can see that future. We'll talk to him about it, but it's an honor on this difficult week. Rabbi Natan Alexander from Netiv Ha'avot, Elazar, Gush Etzion, thanks for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure, Josh. Thank you for having me.
So I mentioned you were exhausted, but what else? What are you feeling right now? Here we are. On Tuesday was the eviction. On Wednesday, apparently let people go back in and take out last remaining items. Thursday, we have these images. You can see them all over the place, including my Facebook page, of the Caterpillar bulldozers destroying homes, Jews destroying homes of other Jews here on the land, in the land of Israel, by order of the courts.
So I think that part of the exhaustion is the emotional toing and froing, the emotional one moment being down and depressed, frustrated, even angry, and the next moment having hope and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. You said that we're going to go back to our homes and we're going to rebuild. So I was actually renting one of those homes. My plan is not necessarily to go back there, but in fact to use the negative, the fact that we've been chucked out and we are now in temporary homes on a new hillside that actually connects Netiv Ha'avot. It lengthens Netiv Ha'avot toward, which is where we lived, towards the next Yishuv of Alon Shvut. It's somebody's responsibility to stay there and build there and grow that part of the community. So I'm exhausted really because there's this toing and froing of one moment, absolute depression, can't believe that this is happening in our own state, can't believe that our own politicians not finding a way out, that our leadership would rather bow to a small minority who have a whole lot of European money rather than strengthen the people that have been strengthening Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel, in the land of Israel for so many years. There's that depression, there's that downside, there's dealing with my wife and my children and their displacement, which is probably the greatest strain. And then on the other hand, it's putting up pictures in my daughter's room, which I was doing before now, making it her new home, making it a place that, although it's not finished, and there's a whole lot of stuff behind that, that we had to sign forms saying that we understand that it's still a building site. And even though we were forced to move there, if someone is injured, we understand that it's a building site and therefore they don't take any responsibility. It's a big story who they are is. But anyway, it's a real emotional to and fro. And I think for many Israelis, it's very difficult. But I also believe as Olim, people who chose to come to Israel, which I know that there are two families, the Denayer family. David Denayer is also an Oleh, a passionate Zionist who made decisions. We made decisions to come here and be here and strengthen the people and inhabit the land like God told us to do so. Then where does all that ideology go now? That ideology has to go to positive. That ideology can't go to staying at pointing fingers and this politician should have and that judge could have and whatever. It's about moving forward, driving forward and making sure that we rebuild. And thanks to those people, Shalom Achshav, thank you to you for everything that you have done, destroying our 17 homes, because we are far stronger than you. We are far more passionate than you in our Zionism, in our connection to the land, that not only will we be building 350 homes, we'll be building 3 million homes in the land of Israel. So you can keep trying because we're going to win.
That's an extremely positive outlook during this very, very difficult time. And you referred to Shalom Achshav. I mean, it basically Peace Now in English. I mean, they were acting solely out of baseless hatred, unfortunately. As sad as it is, that's the reality. There was no other reason. This wasn't a situation, and we've gone over the details time and time again in terms of the skewed and reasons behind why this happened, which I still don't understand till this day. There will never be any Arabs who will be farming land in the middle of Elazar, in the middle of the community. In other words, it wasn't about justice for these Arabs, whatever claim or lack of claim that they had, because they will not be farming it. And the same thing happened several years ago in the Ulpana neighborhood in the middle of Bet El, when they ruled that several buildings were possibly problematic. No Arabs are going to be crossing into the community of Bet El and farming the field. But it wasn't the Arabs who brought all this about. It was Peace Now acting against their fellow Jews out of baseless hatred because of these Jews and their beliefs and their ideology and their geography, where they're located here in Judea and Samaria and in Gush Etzion. People say this is a consensus area. Well, how consensus is this area really if you can destroy 15 houses in this area based on this illogical court decision? But focusing on the positive, though, what Rabbi Natan said, they're actually, they may have won this battle, but they're actually losing in the bigger picture, because they want Jews off this land, Peace Now and the other groups. But if you go outside today, and I've done this on my bike several times already, if you look between the communities of Neve Daniel to the north, via Netiv Ha'avot and Elazar, and all the way down to Alon Shvut, which is a little further south and a little bit west, there's nearly now a contiguous group of homes. They've made it one big cluster of homes here in central Gush Etzion, and with the hope that the government will stick to their guns and continue to build those 350 homes which they promised. It'll be even as Rabbi Natan said, even bigger. There'll be more homes here. You can see it for yourself. You can come out and visit. You can see the reality on the ground. And at the end of the day, we'll say thank you. I'm not willing to say thank you yet because of what the families are going through. But at the end of the day, we'll thank them for building more homes in the land of Israel. Your reaction?
Yeah, one of the really interesting things and powerful moments in this entire 2 years has been when Shalom Achshav came a few months ago to, in inverted commas, dance on the graves, right? They came to our homes and wanted to come into the Yishuv to see what they had won and what they were going to destroy. Obviously, they weren't allowed in, but we naturally came out to meet them with Israeli flags. That's what we stand for. We stand for the Jewish people in the land of Israel. And one massive, I don't know if it's a dichotomy, no, not dichotomy, I can't think of the big word, but one of the massive things that I saw was the flags they were holding were Shalom Achshav flags, black and red flags. There was not one Israeli flag there. So what are they standing for? I don't really know, and I don't really care. What I know is that over 60 children were displaced from Netiv Ha'avot. Every single one of them, no matter how difficult it's been, being face to face with our soldiers. And I promise you, that was the most difficult part, was us being face to face with our soldiers. The soldiers probably not wanting to do what they were doing, but they had to follow orders. Us not wanting to do what we were doing, but we also had to follow orders, and that balance between the two. But Shalom Achshav came out with no Israeli flags, standing for nothing but themselves. We come with Israeli flags with over 60 children that are proud to be Jews, proud to be Israelis, that will continue inhabiting this land, will continue to stand for something other than destruction. Our children will continue to stand for growth, for building, for faith, and for the continuation of the Jewish people in our land.
And for those who were there on Tuesday and witnessed the expulsion firsthand, as difficult as it was with Jews, Israelis having to pull other Jews out of their homes because of this ridiculous court ruling, you could see firsthand how peaceful it was. And unfortunately, you could see how the media, those who hate and those who wanted to cause even more tension and create more lies about what happened on Tuesday, you could see it firsthand on how they skewed the events. You're talking about hundreds of supporters coming to show their love for the people being thrown out of their homes. You're talking about hundreds of officers. I would probably guess 99.9% don't want to be there. And I would also say that in 99% of the instances there on Netiv Ha'avot on Tuesday, things were peaceful. You had some families, I believe yourself, who actually left before Tuesday. You had several families who left before. Then you had other families who, I was in one house in particular where the family said, we don't want anybody other than our family in this house. We're going to get up and walk out on our own power when the authorities come. So there were no demonstrators in those houses. And then you had a third group of those who came to show support who carried out passive resistance. In other words, they did not raise their hands or strike the authorities. They were forcibly pulled out, but they weren't willing to leave their homes. Now, my point is, you had 0.001% who decided that they were going to raise their hands, let's say against a soldier or a policeman, to be more exact, because it wasn't the IDF actually physically taking people out. You had people in that last home there hurling plastic water bottles off the top. There was one soldier who was hurt, but my point is, you had 99.9% of it was unbelievably peaceful. You're talking about a heated situation with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe over 1,000 people. And I saw on some websites, some hateful media skewed websites, the one picture out of all of it they used was that one policeman who, unfortunately, and you shouldn't be condoned, was struck by some object and he was bleeding. But that was the image that they showed to the world, whereas that was 0.1% of all the activity that took place that day. It just shows that, unfortunately, people still have hate in their heart and are willing to skew the story to such an extreme that they don't show the 99.9% of everything else that went on that day, and they show that 1%. And it just shows you how the media can lie and manipulate what happened.
Yeah, listen, I'm not anyone who understands the media. I'm someone, as you probably know for now, who just tells the straight truth, or what the truth is for me. And it was a great pain for everybody. It was a great pain for the families. It still is a great pain for the families. It was a great pain for the soldiers. But one thing that I want to point out is, there is a type of feeling of mourning right now. And we have, when someone, God forbid, dies, we have a mourning period of 7 days and then 30 days, and a year or 11 months, because there's a natural progress to one's mourning. Now, when's the hardest day of mourning? Is the 8th day. It's a day where everybody leaves, everybody's brought you cake, everybody's made you coffee, everybody's sent you well-wishing cards, and on the 8th day, you've got to get up and you've actually got to get on with life. That's the most difficult day. And that day is coming very, very close, where people will have to get back to their own lives, and people will even, be saying, well, come on, they got to get on with it. They've got a roof over their head. They've got to do what they've got to do. My request to all of you listening is this battle, this peaceful battle, has not been won until Netiv Ha'avot has been legalized fully. There was 1.5 meters running through. There was an issue. Our houses are now gone from that. It is now time that our politicians, it is now time that our courts rule that the rest of Netiv Ha'avot that has no political or no legal issues be made legal, so that they can begin building the 350 homes and more. And those of you that are listening, please don't turn a blind eye on the 8th day. Please don't turn around and say, well, we sent Josh a nice email to say, please send our love to the families. Get on social media. Write an email to Josh. Write an email to me, ravnatan@gmail.com. Let us know your support. Let us know if you know any politicians in America, in Europe, anywhere that can help us continue the building of Jewish homes in this Jewish land, because you are listening to this for a reason. There's a reason that God's put your ear to this radio, and it's most likely because you have some power, whatever that may be, to help us do God's work in this land. So be in touch with Josh, be in touch with me. We will send you to the right places in order to help us continue the Jewish people living in the Jewish land.
The 8th day being the hardest, that's a very good point. I wrote that down, Rav Natan, so I could remember that and share that message with people, that people listening around the world or following us on Facebook or what have you should not forget about Netiv Ha'avot and the residents there coming this, I guess Wednesday would be the 8th day or what have you, or maybe Friday, the day after the homes were physically destroyed. Another aspect that I do want to stress, and I don't think people realize it enough, is not only did this affect those who were actually thrown out of their homes, but this affected those whose homes are still standing. I mean, it's bad enough for those who are now no longer part of the Netiv Ha'avot. I told you 35% of the neighborhood destroyed. But those who remain, and I'll give you an example. There are 2 families in Netiv Ha'avot, 2 sisters who literally lived next to each other, one house next to another. Now, one house is gone, one house was demolished, and the other still stands. Think about the children who live in the house that still stands and the guilt that they feel knowing that their first cousins, and in other cases their friends and their neighbors, no longer have a house next to them. There is that guilt, not only in the children, but I know for a fact, talking to some people who are still living in Netiv Ha'avot, in the adults, there's still that guilt. I know one woman who said, how can I continue to live here and I don't know how serious she is at this point, saying, maybe I should move to a different neighborhood. My best friends who lived here now live somewhere else. I am standing on my porch, and literally next door, people should know this, I'm looking out at a destroyed home. So once again to the court, who decided to carry out this demolition and didn't do the complete job, and left, as of now, I'm sure eventually it'll be done, but actually left the rubble still sitting there. I don't understand why. If it's a budget issue, which is insane to even contribute to earmark any money for this in the first place, but they didn't take away the rubble. It's still standing there today. You could drive there today on this Sunday and see 15 piles of rubble. So she's conflicted. The children living next door to these destroyed homes, they're conflicted. It didn't just affect them, and certainly as friends and neighbors and family members in Elazar and in the Gush and throughout all of Israel, everyone is affected by this, or should be affected by this, because this really affects us all.
Yep, and that we have a saying, Kol Yisrael arevim ze lazeh, every single Jew is responsible for the other, and put that together with those that bless you will be blessed. Everybody who is part of the family of Abraham has a responsibility over here, has a responsibility not only to feel, but also to act. Come visit Israel. When you come to visit Israel, come and visit Netiv Ha'avot. It's inspirational. It's absolutely inspirational. I feel honored to live amongst these people that, yes, they're going through pain, they're going through suffering, but at the same time, their heads are up. The songs that we've been singing for the past week, the different interviews that are in Hebrew and in English, and the positive drive that these people have. Now, let me make it very clear. All of the homeowners could have chosen to build within Elazar. The government said, listen, let's just do this quietly. There's a place within the Yishuv, in Elazar, in the Chursha, it's called. We'll build you places there. And they said, absolutely not. Because once we're stuck there, once we're shoved away there, this goal that we have of inhabiting the land of Israel goes down quiet. And we're not willing to do that. So when you guys are all sitting in your comfortable beds, wherever it is, and got your big gardens and all that type of stuff, just think about the Mesirut Nefesh, the self-sacrifice of these families on the behalf of the Jewish people and those that love us to continue the inhabitants of this land.
Amen to that, and our hearts go out to all of those evacuated from their homes, including Rabbi Natan Alexander and his family. Please God, as he mentioned earlier in the show, let Netiv Ha'avot be built speedily. Let the 350 homes be added to those 15, which will, please God, be rebuilt in the very, very near future. And as he also said, keep these people in mind, and don't forget about them when that eighth day comes. The pressure has to be there. In other situations where the pressure perhaps isn't there as much, where it's been already years now, where people living in Ermta and thinking about areas, and every situation, every case is different. But I'm talking about Migron, I'm talking about the Betel Ulpana families, the people from Amona, Ofra, and it's crazy. The Gush Katif families, some of them who were living still in temporary housing for years and years and years. And hopefully this will not be the case here with Netiv Ha'avot. But keep the pressure on the elected officials here. If you're living in Israel, you have a vote in the Knesset. You have every right. You can call up. These MKs are fully accessible. You can put pressure on them. You can call the Prime Minister's office. And as I did, and I know I called on the listeners to do the same several weeks ago, calling the Prime Minister and asking him, please decide last minute to examine the Netiv Ha'avot case and change your mind, the mind of the courts, and do something. But unfortunately that didn't come to be. Bottom line, don't forget that those families are here, and let's let them come home as soon as possible. Rabbi Natan Alexander, thank you so much for your time. I know you're exhausted after all that you've gone through, and I promise not to forget about you on that eighth day. And let's let the listeners also, please God, commit to not forgetting about you as well. Regards to you and your family. Stay strong, and we're here for you.
Thank you very much. God bless.
And we're going to wrap up today with that. I mean, there's other news going on, as always. Hamas, of course, carrying out their near daily firebomb kite attacks and all the other things going on in the world in regard to Israel and the Middle East and everything. But I think we're going to leave it on that note for today's show. So thanks for everyone joining us here on the Land of Israel Network. Israel Uncensored is the name of the show. It is the 17th of June, 2018. Shout out to Benjamin Bresky, engineer extraordinaire. Without him, there is no sound. We could not get any of these shows up. If you missed any of the show, go back to either the Land of Israel Network website at thelandofisrael.com, on my Facebook page, on the Land of Israel Facebook page, SoundCloud, iTunes, a lot of different options, and go listen to all the wonderful programming here, bringing the true story of Israel and the beauty of Israel, despite the craziness which was the destruction of homes. Overall, we try to bring the beauty of the Land of Israel to you. Come home to Israel. Make Aliyah. You want to see change? You want to prevent Netiv Ha'avot, the next, God forbid, Netiv Ha'avot. You want to create change? Don't turn your back on Israel. Now, do the opposite of that. Come home to the Land of Israel. Let's leave with that positive note for today. Most importantly, between now and when we talk again next week, everybody out there in the wonderful world of ours, be safe. Shalom, shalom from Elazar, Gush, Etzion, Israel.
It's much more real than any reality show. It's much more dramatic than any drama. It's much more funny than any comedy. It's like a game show, but it's no game. It's our lives.
Listen to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman, political correspondent for the Jerusalem Post, every week on thelandofisrael.com.